Prajajanaranyana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Jaya Gurudeva 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 Prabhupada 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 Jaya Kodanitai Maya Poshashi Kodanitai Maya Poshashi Jaya Kodanitai Maya Poshashi Kodanitai Maya Poshashi Kodanitai Jaya Maya Poshashi. Iskam Guru Bindu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. This is the final instruction, last instruction. Tamal Krishna wanted to double check to see if Prabhupada actually wanted all the GBC men from all over the world to come. It would be costly and demanding, so he wanted to be sure that Prabhupada really wanted it. When Prabhupada reassured him that he did, Tamal Krishna, who saw his services responding to whatever Srila Prabhupada desired, then spoke in favor of the idea. Because they love you, said Tamal Krishna, I'm sure they will all come and be with you. Your love for me, Srila Prabhupada, will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. The word was sent to all GBC secretaries worldwide. Srila Prabhupada might depart very soon, and he wanted them to be with him in Vrindavan. As soon as possible, the GBC men left their duties and came to him. The GBC men met and decided that aside from Prabhupada's will, which would secure the ISKCON properties, and aside from making all the bank accounts within ISKCON secure, there were also a few questions which they should put before Prabhupada before it was too late. These questions, such as how future disciples would be initiated, would have to be answered. Otherwise, they would become a source of speculation and havoc after Srila Prabhupada's departure, which they were. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srimati Sita Thakurani is the consort of Sri Advaita Acharya. At the time of Lord Chaitanya's birth, Sri Advaita Acharya was residing in Shantipo. Thus, Sita Devi, upon hearing the news that Sachimati gave birth to a son, visited the house of Jagannath Mishra, residing on a palanquin covered with cloth. She brought with her many auspicious articles, such as fresh grass, paddy, goro chana, turmeric, kumkum, and sandalwood. She also brought gifts of eatables, dresses, and other gifts. She blessed the newly born child by placing fresh grass and paddy on his head and saying, "May you be blessed with a long duration of life." But being afraid of ghosts and witches, she gave the child the name Nimai. Because of the Nimai tree, isn't it? Isn't it? The Nimai scares off ghosts. Is it? Yeah. And what's paddy? Paddy, apart from an Irish guy. Paddy. What paddy is? Paddy. P-A-D-D-Y. Fresh grass and paddy. These are all auspicious. Wheat. All the chaff. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So there you go. It's auspicious. I suppose it's auspicious because if you don't eat it, you die, right? Jai. Sita Thakurani ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 2, which is entitled Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons. Text 56 onwards. Okay. So I'll just read the translation, and then we can do the Sanskrit on 57. Because of the loss of his wife, the Kalinga bird lamented with tears in his eyes. Meanwhile, following the dictations of mature time, the hunter, who was very carefully hidden in the distance, released his arrow, which pierced the body of the Kalinga bird and killed him. On to text 57. Evam Yuyam Apashyancha. Evam Yuyam Apashyancha. Atmapayam Abudaya. Atmapayam Abudaya. Nainam Prapshita Sochancha. Nainam Papshatat Sochancha. Patim Vasha Shatir Api. Patim Vasha Shatir Api. Evam yujam apashyancha atma payam abudaya nainam prapshyata sochancha patim vasha shatir api evam yuyam apashyancha atma payam abudaya nainam prapshyata sochancha patim vasha shatir api. Evam yuyam apashyancha Anama Buddhaya Naina Prapshyata Sochancha Patimbasha Shutapi Yama Pashyancha Atma Payama Buddhaya Naina Prapshyata Sochancha Patimbasha Shutapi Evam Yuyama Pashyancha Atma Payama Buddhaya Naina Prapshyata Sochancha Patimbasha Shutapi Evam yuyama pashyancha atmapayama buddhaya naina prapsyata sochancha patim vashatir api. Evam, thus, yuyam, you, apashyancha, not seeing, atma apayam, own death, abudaya, O ignorant ones, na, not, enam, him, prapshyata, you will obtain, sochancha, lamenting for, patim, your husband, vashashatai, for 100 years, api, even. Translation, thus Yamaraj, in the guise of a small boy, told all the queens, you are also foolish that you lament, but do not see your own death. Afflicted by a poor fund of knowledge, you do not know that even if you lament for your dead husband for hundreds of years, you will never get him back alive. And in the meantime, your lives will be finished. Responsibly, please. Thus Yamaraj, in the guise of a small boy, told all the queens, you are also foolish that you lament, but do not see your own death. Afflicted by a poor fund of knowledge, you do not know that even if you lament for your dead husband for hundreds of years, you will never get him back alive. And in the meantime, your lives will be finished. Nice one for a funeral, eh? Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yamaraj once asked Maharaj Yudhisthira, what is the most wonderful thing within this world? Maharaj Yudhisthira replied from the Mahabharata Vanapava 3:13-116. Ahanya hani bhutani kachantiha yamalayam shesha stavaram ichanti kim ascharyam ataparam. Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death every moment. It's 1 million a day, isn't it, on Earth? 1 million people a day die. But a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. Everyone has to die because everyone is fully under the control of material nature. Yet everyone thinks that he is independent, that whatever he likes he can do, that he will never meet death, but live forever, and so on. So-called scientists are making various plans by which living entities in the future can live forever. But while they are thus pursuing such scientific knowledge, Yamaraj, in due course of time, will take them away from their business of so-called research. Om Jnanatimiranda Shaganandjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhustam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swavadantika Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhattarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Vanchikapatrubhischa, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Paritanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So, the most wonderful thing. So Yamaraj is speaking to the queens. He's telling them that they're foolish, and he's given the example of a bird that was caught in a net, and then the husband of the bird lamented so much that he got killed himself by the hunter. And Yamaraj is making the point: what can you really do if you get very upset and you cry and you're miserable for hundreds of years? What can you really do to help the situation? You'll never get him back alive, and in the meantime your lives will also be finished. So it's similar to the story of once these people were all crying because someone had died, and this sage came out of the forest and he said, "What is happening?" He says, "Oh, we're all crying because Arthur has died." So the sage said, "Well, you're all going to die as well, so why don't you save your tears for yourself?" So that is the tendency, that when somebody close to us is dying, that we lament as if we're not going to die. That's the illusion. My dad actually used to do weightlifting, and he used to let buses leave the bus stop so he could run after them and catch them, and take nails to the pitchers and bend them to impress my mum, who he was courting with at the time. And he used to take telephone boxes and rip them. And so he was convinced that he would be an exception to the rule. He wouldn't have to die at that time. That was in his early 20s. He was thinking like that. So that is the most wonderful thing, that everything is temporary, but we're convinced we can make it permanent. We're always trying to make arrangements to make things that are temporary last longer. And unfortunately, they don't have many times you try it. Don't know if you've noticed. So this is the most wonderful thing. This is the most bewildering illusion of the material world. The illusion is presented as if it will last forever, but it's actually very fleeting. It was called by Berger, a Russian philosopher, the glamour image. And Berger worked out that the most intense height of enjoyment is not the enjoyment, but the anticipation of the enjoyment. That's the most intense part of the whole thing. The anticipation of enjoying is more intense than the enjoyment itself. So for advertising, if you want to catch somebody, you get them just as they're about to sip a pint of beer, or they're just about to start smoking a cigarette. That's when it's at its height. As soon as they start drinking or smoking, everything's an anticlimax after that. Everything starts going downhill. So eternality is presented as the anticipation of eternality, but it never is. It's always the anticlimax. It seems like this pint is going to last forever. As I drink this pint, I'm going to merge into an eternal ocean of bliss where all my problems will just fall away. And then the pint finishes and you're 5 pounds short and the problems are all there the same, but now you're slightly mentally handicapped to try and deal with them than you were before you drank the pint. So this is the illusion, and the advertising companies play on the illusion rather than trying to understand the illusion. It's like having a load of people in the desert, and the advertising company put little frames around these mirages, and they say, "Look, there's water here. Give me £100, and there's water here." So the people stumble across to the mirage, and then they realize it's not, and then they say, "No, actually, it's over here. It wasn't iPhone 14. It was iPhone 15. iPhone 16, iPhone 17. That's what it is. It's iPhone 17. Once you get that, you will be blissful for eternity." Sorry, 18. 18. Did I say 17? 18. I meant to say 18. The mirage is over here and over there. As long as they just keep coming up with new mirages, then people just go from one mirage to the next. Of course, during the course of going through those mirages one to the other, they're becoming more and more dehydrated until in the end, they just die. They never get their teeth in the carrot. They just keep running for it. So that's the most wonderful thing. And actually, it's not so wonderful, really, is it? It's wonderful in the sense that it makes you wonder how people could be so stupid. But only in that sense is it wonderful. Normally, if something is full of wonder, but it's full of kind of like the inability to understand how people could be so foolish, including ourselves, how we could be so foolish. In that sense, we are full of wonder. But they are thinking that they can live forever. It's just normal to think. It is just the normal way that we function, that we live forever, that we didn't come into existence and we don't go out of existence. Have you actually ever sat down and seriously thought about it? It's incomprehensible to imagine yourself not existing. It just doesn't compute, because we always have and we always will. Whatever exists, the nature of existence is that if it exists forever. And Krishna says of the non-permanent, there's no duration. So of that which doesn't really exist, it doesn't last forever. So just look around, and anything you see that doesn't last forever doesn't really exist. The only thing that really exists is the consciousness. Everything else is just in a state of decomposition. You can definitely testify to that at the age of 60. It's all downhill. When you hit 60, everything goes south. It's just, my face is just hanging on the skull now, like a hot water bottle. But we don't mind, because we know we're not the body. People get very sad. There's a place you can go in Glasgow, and they put bags into your arm. It drips, called IV treatment. Mega boost, £200. Trying to boost yourself up. Trying to keep you going. Trying to get some, squeeze some more enjoyment out of the body. So hundreds and thousands meet death at every moment, and the foolish living being thinks he's deathless, and he does not prepare for death. So it's just like people going down a river on a canoe. Well, a series of people in different canoes going down a river, and there's a waterfall coming up. And there's one man, he's very adamant that he doesn't want to face the waterfall. And because of the noise of the waterfall, which is disturbing him, he's put headphones in. And he's listening to his favorite. Actually, he's watching a film. He's got an LCD screen in the computer. And he's going down the river backwards watching a film. And he's got earplugs in so he doesn't have to listen to the waterfall, which is disturbing him. So that's what's happening, unfortunately. People are turning their back on death. They're preoccupying themselves with some transitory sense gratification. And they're trying to blot out the awareness that death is impending. And they're not preparing for it. They're deciding, well, you can't really prepare for it anyway. Everyone has to die, whatever you do, so what's the point? But that's a big assumption. And as we go on, as the waterfall gets closer, then the assumption becomes more and more a source of anxiety. So-called scientists are making various plans by which living entities in the future can live forever. But while there are others pursuing such scientific knowledge, Yamaraj, in due course of time, will take them away from their business of so-called research. Any questions or comments? Yes. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I was reading a book about psychology, and this Buddhist was at a funeral, and the people, one person came up to him. The Buddhist was very upset, and one person came up to the Buddhist and he said, "Oh, I thought you guys were supposed to be transcendental." And the Buddhist said, "This is how I transcend the pain, by mourning it." So part of the process of healing, of dealing with the loss of things in the material world, is to not bypass. It's called spiritual bypassing. Is you feel some emotion coming up, and you think, "No, that's probably just Maya." So you bypass it, but the emotion just stays there and it festers because it's not been expressed. So it's a kind of pseudo way of trying to deal with things that I'll just blot everything out, and I'll be okay. There's a book called Emotional Intelligence, and this woman had been with her husband for 17 years, and he just left her to go with the secretary. And she's speaking to a friend, She says, and the friend says, "Are you okay about that?" She says, "Yeah, I'm okay. In fact, he's been gone 2 months, and I haven't shed a tear." And as soon as she said that, the emotion came up that she'd been trying to see. Out of pride, she did not want to accept that someone had hurt her that much. So she just, okay, well, if I don't mean anything to you, then you don't mean anything to me. But that wasn't actually what she felt. And then after 2 months of suppressing it, then it came up, and she was so hurt. Somebody that she'd given her heart to would just drop her so easily, So emotional intelligence means learning how to connect empathically with your feelings. There's a whole process called nonviolent communication. So we're in the temple room. It's 4:30 in the morning, and someone's leading Mangalati, and they sound like a foghorn. And they're not even getting the words right. It's all mispronounced. And you're getting really, really uptight. Can you not do this properly? For the Lord. But what's really going on is someone else is in the temple room as well, and they think it's fine and not upset at all. So we have to understand the reason why we have these feelings is because we have these certain needs. And rather than blaming the person for our needs, we should accept that we should be responsible for our own feelings. And this is the way that we are, It's an intricate subject because we can accept it theoretically, but a lot of the time when we act kind of default. And we don't process it, So it takes some time to develop that emotional intelligence that, the spiritual master is leaving, Srila Prabhupada is leaving, the devotees are very upset, They're very emotional about the whole thing. And to just try and blot that out and say, "No, I'm okay. Prabhupada's gone back to Krishna, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I know I'm not the body, and I know he's not the body, so there's no problem, That may be philosophically what's going on, but emotionally that's not what's going on. You love the person very much, you're going to miss him so much now that he's gone. You're going to feel so unprotected in so many ways. And maybe you're also lamenting that you didn't show that person enough love at the time. That can be one of the hardest things, is that somebody that you never really told how much they meant to you dies, and then you realize you're never going to get a chance now to be able to say to that person how much they meant to you. So that can be a big emotional wrench. So when you get older and your parents are getting older, be really careful, be really nice with them, because when they die, you'll really beat yourself up if you abandon them. So you have to kind of think. You have to look after yourself as well. Self-care also means seeing what could cause you to feel very guilty and bad in the future. And it's funny because with my parents, I found the best way to communicate Krishna consciousness to them was to show them a lot of affection and a lot of respect, which I didn't do in the beginning. I was just like, I was going to be really staunch and gung-ho. My whole family are in Maya, so that's their problem, you know. And then later on I was thinking, that's not really going to achieve the desired result. So, yeah, the Yamaraj has come to chastise them, and it's very early on. It may also be that they were more cultured. I don't know which age it was that the story took place, and it may be that more was expected of them than this, you know. I mean, Arjuna broke down in tears, and Krishna's like, "Why are you lamenting? You know, you're an Aryan." That was immediately. He was expecting him, you know. Whereas normally, you know, if you're going to go and have to kill your grandfather, you know, you'd be expected to be allowed a day or two to try and get over that, you know. But immediately, just stop being a fool. Go ahead and. You know. But that is the nature of knowledge. Actually, when you take initiation and then you take second initiation, more is expected of you. You're expected to behave, conduct yourself in a more mature way, you know. So that's the responsibility of knowledge, the ability to respond in the proper way. How to process your emotions, Krishna consciously, and also how to recognize what the healing process entails. You know, it's not that you'll be like that forever, but unless you go through that stage, you're not going to be able to fully recover. You know. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, it's the most intense. Yeah. Well, there's Vipralamba and there's Sambhogya, isn't it? So Sambhogya is not as intense as Vipralamba. So the separation, you know, the lamentation, the anguish over not being with your beloved is more intense than meeting him. Interesting, yeah? Sambhogya is the meeting. And the two are there to nourish each other, you know. The meeting is there to nourish the pangs of separation, and pangs of separation intensify the joy of meeting again. But if you're just with them all the time, even though it's in the spiritual world, it's not as good as when you're separated, and then you can meet them, separate and then you can meet them. Then you're churning, and then the love develops even more. It's hard to conceive of how love can eternally increase unlimitedly. Because when we love something, right, usually we love something for about 6 weeks, and then we're fed up with it after that. And then we have to move on to something else. And with relationships, they say the honeymoon period lasts for 18 months. So after 18 months, she sees what you're really like, and you see what she's really like. And then it's like, womp, womp, womp. And the romance is worn off, you know. So if there's anticipation, lamentation, separation, then this is the other side of the meeting, and then it stays ever fresh. But in the material world, we never really love anybody for very long, you know. Even if you do really love someone, you stay with them your whole life. As you get older, it becomes more difficult, unless the love goes deeper and you appreciate them more for the person that they are. But can you imagine what it must be like in the spiritual world, where they've loved each other forever, and they're just loving each other more and more? What that must be like. How to conceive, isn't it? One of the prayers when we're doing puja is you meditate on the spiritual world, and the ground shines with more brilliance than 10 million suns rising in the sky at once. That's very hard to understand, isn't it? It's like brighter than brighter than brighter. How can you put it in normal terms to understand how powerful the light is and the love is in the spiritual world. We have just a glimpse of it here in the material world. Any other questions or comments? One devotee, Sankirtan partner Prabhupada Charan, he was good friends with one man that had a business, and the man had a 6-month-old child, and the child died a cot death. It's quite common, actually. So he asked Prabhupada, would you mind coming and just speaking a few words? And so he came along. It was a little coffin like this, white coffin, with like gold filigree around it, you know. And so he was just saying how the soul, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will I ever cease to be. And he just said a few things about how the soul is eternal. And after the funeral, the man came up to him and he said, that was so nice to hear that. He said, it was so reassuring to hear that. And just recently somebody went to a funeral, but it was just a normal Christian or Catholic. And oh yeah, that's right, it was my friend John, who donates the cabins. And I said, what was the speech like? They said, well, he could tell it was just something that he was supposed to say. He said it 1,000 times. He just said the words, and then it was part of the ritual, you know, and then it was over. So society is suffering because of this lack of knowledge. This ignorance is causing them so much sadness and pain, and this knowledge is, and you know, Yamaraj, she's chastising the queens, but only to relieve them of their grieving, you know, to help them to wake up and see what is the point of lamenting like this. In fact, they say that when a person dies, the reason why the body is burnt is because the person hangs around the body because they don't know who else they are, and they think that the body, so they stay with the body, and they're very confused. And then all the people that love him and he loves are all around the body, and they're all very, very sad. And he's trying to reassure them, it's okay, I am here, but I'm just not in my body anymore, but I'm fine, it's okay. And so he is in anxiety. And if he sees the people are sorry to see him, but at the same time they're kind of positive about the future and they're hopeful, then it helps that soul to be able to leave them, think, okay, they're going to be okay, and then he can move on, you know. Otherwise it makes the thing so much more painful for everyone. So if you really love somebody, then show them at the time of death that you're strong, and that you can accommodate this, you can accept it, you miss them very much, but you're going to push on with your own life now because you know that that's what will please them the most. You're going to try and go ahead and be very productive and make them proud of you. And then the person can. That's why they burn the body, so that, you know, the ghost is hanging around, you realize, oh, okay, it's me finished. I better move on. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what it highlights the flaw, actually. When I was a young nipper, I was struggling with the concept of God. And I mean, when things went really bad, I used to pray, and I, you know, some miracles would happen. Actually, one time I broke something, and my dad would have killed me if he'd have found out. And I got down and was saying, "God, please fix it," and then it started working again. You know, and things like that at times to indicate. So I had some idea that there was a God, but what put me off was I got taken to church a few times, and all the people in it really spooked me out. To me, I actually had a meltdown. They were trying to take me to get baptized, and I thought it was like a vampire thing, you know. They were going to start drinking my blood, so I just had a meltdown and I ran out to church. And my parents were really embarrassed, so they never tried to do that again. And anyway, I had this auntie, and she believed in God. She was always She was a born-again Christian. God bless her soul. So she decided she was going to let me in on a bit of speculation. So we're walking along and she says, see the clouds up there? And I said, oh yeah. And she goes, well, actually, that's heaven. And what you can see is the underneath of the islands that people live on. And the blue is the sea. It's just a little kid, so I was thinking, oh, okay. Well, they must be hopping around from island to island, because the islands don't last that long, do they? They all kind of disintegrate. So you're there on the island, in heaven. Oh, watch out, guys! This one's starting to jump over onto that one. So it was okay when I was a kid. I kind of went along with it, but as you grow up, you're thinking, she's just made that up. It's just come out of her head, And because they don't really have a guru, they just have their ideas of what they think Jesus meant by this or that. Then it's actually very similar to Ritvik, because Ritvik is, apart from Prabhupada, nobody can really say anything, So apart from Jesus, everyone can speculate their head off as to what they think Jesus meant. Whereas if you have a living guru, he can Guru Tattva. Guru is one, so whether it's Srila Prabhupada saying the truth or a living person saying the truth, if he's aligned with Guru Tattva, he's saying the same thing. So it's not that I can only hear from Prabhupada. That's not what Guru Tattva is. Guru Tattva doesn't stop with somebody, doesn't stop with Jesus. Whoever is sincerely following Jesus, he becomes representation. Otherwise, you end up with a real mess of all kinds of speculations. And then some people like this speculation. Oh, no, I don't like the island thing with the clouds. No, I'm not into that. Okay, well, let's form a different church, because everyone in this church thinks that. Okay, well, oh, no, I know what it is. It's God's beard. The clouds are God's beard. Okay, let's form a different church. We're the God's beard church. And they can be the upside, underneath the island church. And then you get all these different... So the easiest thing is just to find a bona fide guru. What was the thing about the institution? The problem. You'll about how you cooperate. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what we have in ISKCON is we have over 100 gurus now, and they have different emphases, as you could say. Some emphasize book distribution, some are more into kirtan, some are more into the holy name, into japa, some are more rasika, some are more tattva. They're all different. They all have a different take. And you're in an international society. So, it's going to be interesting how the whole thing develops over hundreds of years. We have all these different nuances and how we're able to accommodate them all. Because within the society, you have a whole spectrum of different types of people with all different types of conditioning. So some will gravitate more towards this. Some like this kind of spiritual master because he's very gentle and very kind and very soft. And someone else likes a spiritual master that's really, forceful and pushy and really, yeah, let's do this, And then I need to be underneath someone like that, There's one particular guru, he's very, very strict. And for some people, that's very refreshing now. They've had everything, they feel like everything's been watered down and namby-pambied that much to accommodate everybody, and they just want the hard line, the old school, you'll have that there. So in a society, you learn how to navigate through all these different types of gurus and disciples and different aspects of looking at the truth by showing everyone respect, showing respect to everybody, but being very, very careful who you reveal your mind to the person who you feel is devoid of the propensity to criticize others, or is devoid of the propensity that would discourage you or put you off practicing spiritual life. And that's the challenge. If you can connect with somebody where you can do that with, it will be such a resource, such an invaluable resource to tap into, that you can go there, you can open your heart to that person, and they'll say exactly what it is you need to hear and spur you on in your practice of spiritual life. But it is a challenge, actually, having gone through a few spiritual masters myself, to find the one, and it's very wonderful when you do. So don't rush it, just take your time. And when you're really, really sure, give your heart to that person, and up until then, it's not wrong or offensive to discriminate, to kind of, I'm not sure I'm totally into that, because that's what Rupa Goswami is saying to do. You see, he actually says keep a distance. Okay, we can respect them in the mind, and then for some I can pay obeisances, and for some I can, but I have to learn how to just stay respectful with everybody. And like Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, there's not much about him, but one thing they did know is he wouldn't listen to any criticism. And what you get sometimes is you get polemic going on, and it's happening all the time on Facebook. And somebody will say, "Oh, I'm not very impressed with this spiritual master, the way he said that." It's such a silly thing to do on the public forum. If you have your personal opinion about something, keep it personal. Don't get onto a platform and have other people listening to you, especially if they're disciples of the spiritual master that you've got a problem with. Better to just keep a respectful distance and just quietly get on with your own spiritual life. Yeah, well, it's a question of maturity, of developing that sensitivity and that consideration to be mature enough to be able to do that. And if you don't, for however long it takes you until you're able to, for that long you'll suffer to one degree or another. And your practice of Krishna consciousness will be compromised to one degree or another by that. So the quicker you wise up, the quicker you can move forward in your spiritual life. It really is sink or swim in Krishna consciousness. We all jump in the deep end. We move into the ashram, we try and follow the principles, and we don't know whether we're going to be able to do it, until we try, and then we think, well, it's not as difficult in one sense, but it's more difficult than I thought it's going to be in another sense. And you're trying to, can I really do this? And you're trying to swim before you sink. So it's a little bit like if 100 join, only 12 are left in 20 years. It used to be anyway. It's getting better now. So more sink than swim, and that's a reality of what it is. So if you're intelligent, you think, okay, well, look, I do want to swim. Well, there's no question of not learning to swim. So I need to learn fast, and I need to learn quick. The longer it takes you to learn, the more you have to suffer. And sometimes you have to go through the same lesson because you didn't learn it, and you go through the same situation again until the penny drops. I mean, just simple things like Srila Prabhupada was saying yesterday. A sadhu was not somebody with a big beard, but no sense of Krishna. Because we've heard Krishna consciousness, Krishna consciousness, Krishna consciousness, Krishna consciousness. It doesn't mean anything after a while. When you've heard Krishna consciousness a million times, it doesn't mean anything. And then you hear a sense of Krishna, and you go, oh, that's what it means. I'm supposed to have a sense of Krishna. I'm sensing, like if you go to the Holy Dham, it's very strong. You feel like Krishna could just walk around the corner, isn't it? In Vrindavan, you feel like sometimes the atmosphere is just so different. You feel like Krishna could just step out from a bush with his flute. It just feels like that. There's a real sense of Krishna just naturally there. And if you can develop that very quickly, an awareness of the presence of God, then you can get through everything. If you become conscious of me, you'll pass over all the obstacles. If you don't, and you act through false ego, not hearing me, then you'll be lost. And hearing me doesn't just mean hearing me when I'm speaking the Bhagavad Gita. Hearing me means when I come to you in the form of the holy name. If you can't hear me when you're chanting, if you can't hear that I am the holy name, then you'll be lost. Or at least you'll have a very tough day. But eventually you will be lost. Because how many tough days can you go through, before you eventually decide, okay, that's it. I'm getting a hot dog stand on an industrial estate. I'm just going to listen to Jimi Hendrix. Question, Nishan. Oh, you look like you were just about to make a profound statement. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a funny story. The devotee goes to the Sankirtan leader and he goes, I've fallen down. He goes, you've fallen down? He goes, yeah, I've had a cream bun. But the fall down is not the problem either. The fall down isn't so much the problem. It's the guilt that comes with the fall down afterward. That you beat yourself up so much that you discourage yourself from practicing Krishna consciousness. If you continue on, then you're saintly. And Krishna's really pleased that you've done that. So it's the endeavor that counts, not the result. If you're making an endeavor. Somebody may be born Brahminical, and to not follow the principles, it's just, he just can't compute it, So it's just no endeavor at all for him. And it seems like, oh, he's much better devotee than me. But we've come from a very difficult situation. We've had to try so much harder, make much more of an endeavor. So Krishna is more pleased by the endeavor than by the result. So we should remember that. Whatever it is, you're making a cabbage, he's doing it very nicely, he's cutting it very, or you're making prasad, whatever it is, if you've made a huge endeavor to do that, that's the success. Yeah, that's funnily enough, actually, I had a bad experience with eggs, which was good in one sense, but we got ripped off by this guy in Harley Street. I almost got ripped off again, actually, because I did the sleep thing. Anyway, I'll tell you about that another time. But we'd lost our voices on Sankirtan. We went to the doctor, Dr. Medonka, which is like a bad sign right away, isn't it? Don't trust someone called Medonka. And he goes, oh yeah, and he put this cocaine up our noses. And then he pushed this thing, he just kept pushing, and it broke through the sinuses into the back, and he was going, I'm going to do a special operation on you to protect you, so your vocal cords will be okay, because he was saying that the sinuses were infected. It turns out it wasn't the case, but he got a lot of money out of us by doing that. Anyway, after the operation, it just felt like I'd been kicked in the face by a donkey, when I woke up. And the hospital said, what do you want? I said, well, I'm strict vegetarian, but I don't mind some ice cream, And they brought a bowl of ice cream, I offered it, and I was eating it. And what it felt like is being in a lift and just going down a few floors. And by the time I'd eaten it, I said, could I just have a look at the label on the packet? And there it was, sure enough, my old friend, the eggs, So it was bad. But in another sense, it was really good, because it made me realize how much it affects your consciousness. It's the menstrual period of a chicken. It's like one of the worst low-class things you could possibly want to put inside your body, And it just took the consciousness down so low. I was so lethargic. I started chanting, and after and the sparkle came back. I was okay again, What would have happened if I'd have eaten beef or something like that? It would have been so detrimental, to the consciousness. So that's only because I've reached a certain level of refinement where I can appreciate the difference. But for someone that's coming up from really, really low modes, then whatever he's doing right now We don't disturb the minds that are ignorant, but we engage them in acts of devotion, and in that way we can purify them. And then they'll come to a point where they'll develop a level of discrimination, where they'll understand that by giving up these acts, it'll really, really help me to go forward, because they're pulling me back so much. Whereas right now, he's not so much aware of that. So with preaching, our preaching is always progressive. We never discourage a person. There's a book by Dhanavir Maharaj called The Bright Side, and preaching is always looking at the bright side. It's never making the person feel judged or guilty. And by encouraging them like that and developing a good relationship with them, keep in touch with the person, get to know the person, engage them in regular acts of devotion, and as they start to become purified, then they will naturally get the realization. You cannot ram your realization down someone else's throat. So you cannot do that. So it's not possible. Yes, I'm going to in the key. Srila Prabhupada key. Go to Premanande. Oh, no.